campuses than what was really campus for the appropriate size of configuration. So after a while, the district settled on building a middle school, a 7th and 8th grade campus, and then having the 6th grade campus as a standalone 6th grade. Back then, I know that what the leaders were trying to do was trying to have an affordable approach to fixing building issues that were left over from consolidation. So they built this huge 7th and 8th grade campus. The problem with it now that we can clearly see it 20 years later is that 6th grade campuses in and of themselves, for curriculum reasons, probably don't work. In the state of Texas, there are 1,200 school districts like Del Rio, like SFDR-CISD. Some bigger. You have your Houston and your districts in San Antonio, and a lot of them are smaller. But you have 1,200 school districts. In all 1,200 school districts, you're only going to find 25 6th grade centers. That's it, across the entire state. Why? Because that's really not the best configuration. You're also not going to find a single campus that houses up to 1,600 7th and 8th grade students. That size campus just doesn't exist. Okay, why doesn't it exist? Well, because that's that age where kids are transitioning between elementary and the independence of high school, and it takes a while for students to come in line with the norms that's expected of an independent student. It's just a very complex age. So that's why you don't want to have a campus that big. But here in Del Rio, we have, in the entire state of Texas, now you might find a middle school that's 1,400 kids. Very few of them, but it'll be all 3 grade levels. You're not going to find one just for 7th and 8th grade students. So what happens when you have a campus that size? Well, even though the state of Texas hasn't released the academic ratings for the last 2 years, the reality is that Del Rio Middle School in the last 2 years would have been rated a low D. A low D, why? Because it's difficult to engage the students at that type of learning level when the teachers, instead of focusing on working with each other and developing engaging lessons, they're using all their energy to manage the large number of kids going through that complex age. They teach the curriculum, but really at that age, we should be still transitioning from elementary to secondary. And if you look at your elementary teachers teach not content, although they do teach some of it, but it's mainly teaching students how to be academic learners. They teach numeracy, they teach literacy, they teach phonics, they teach writing, and it's developing the child. So the child hits middle school and he's about to make that transition to learn deep content, but it's difficult because the middle school teacher needs to live in both worlds. They have to be strong pedagogically, which means strong on how to engage the students in the learning, and then strong in pushing the content out. And it's difficult when they have their hands full with that large number of students. I was talking to the teachers at the middle school last week, and I was telling them, I said, I've worked at this middle school before. I was a principal there probably 18 years ago. And I tell them, I said, I understand why we're rated a D at this campus. It takes all your passion and your energy working with a large number of students and everything that comes with it. So that in itself, the academic learning, is a tremendous issue. Not a little one, it's a pretty big issue. We can look at other issues, the enrollment. If we look at the enrollment, once kids hit 6th grade, it starts to go down, and it bounces a little bit back in high school because kids want to maybe be part of a larger band. They want to be part of maybe some of our athletic programs, certainly our CTE programs, but it doesn't bounce back to the level that we want. Another issue is student participation. middle school students, to be successful, need to be highly involved in school, more so than any other grade level. But the reality is that if we look at just athletics, we have about 200 students that come out for athletics at 7th grade. I'm sorry, I'm just talking about boys. About 200 boys that come out for athletics. The majority of them try to play football, but you only have one team. And besides only having one team, you have few kids or other teams that are willing or able to travel to Del Rio because of finances. So by your 8th grade year, a whole lot of kids didn't get a whole lot of practice time, they didn't get a whole lot of playing time, and they stopped participating in athletics. It'd be nice if they participated in something else, but by that point, you would have been in band. It probably would have happened in 6th grade, and then 7th grade, and so on. So it's difficult to make that switch. So kids start to become disengaged. Now here's what happens when a student is disengaged. At Del Rio High School, we have some of the best programs in the entire state. So first, we have an early college high school where you can have about 120 students graduate with an associate's degree. You have a whole lot of certifications where students can graduate being certified at EMT, phlebotomy, a whole lot of Microsoft certifications. We have more certifications or more opportunities for certifications than we have students ready to engage in those rigorous programs. Why? Because in middle school, when we needed to engage students, students became disengaged because there wasn't enough opportunities for them. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished in the district, but the reality is that up until a few years ago, you could graduate with an associate's degree from early college high school and still get some of the more coveted certifications in CTE. Why? Because it should really be one of these capstone programs per student. Some students get a certification in welding. Some of them get an associate's degree. Others maybe get 18 hours, but they participate at high levels in another program. But we have more programs than what we have students ready to engage in those programs, because at middle school, the engagement wasn't where it needed to be to keep the students growing academically. So as parents, sometimes we get to high school and we say, well, we're just glad they graduated. But the reality is that we could have added so much value if we wouldn't have lost them at middle school. It shouldn't be to where we get to high school and we're just glad they graduated and maybe they're going to go on to some college or career, but may not be as ready as they otherwise should be. Then there's a whole climate and culture of the campus. More often than not, on social media, you're going to see some horror story about Del Rio Middle School. And that's been the case since its inception 20 years ago. I remember thinking I was a high school principal in Austin, and I remember thinking of wanting to come to Del Rio and be home. And I remember the headlines. Back then there was a printed paper, Del Rio News Herald. The middle school kids had knocked down the bleachers while taking a group picture. Middle school kids doing this or that in the hallway. And although we've gotten better at managing the behavior, it's still a tremendous safety concern. So out of all the issues that have been prevalent, the safety issue by far is the biggest issue at Del Rio Middle School. And I'm not saying that we don't have enough police officers to respond to an incident. That's not it at all, because we do have enough police officers that are there at the campus. But that doesn't mean that something can't happen and somebody is still going to get hurt. It doesn't mean that we don't have the frequency of issues that could escalate, that we're not stopping 10-second fights in the restroom, that we're not worried about hallway behavior to where we release one class at a time from the gym because it's so crowded. And that's just the reality. And I'm sure that 25 years ago when they envisioned that building, that's not what they were thinking about. But I invite anybody to come to Del Rio Middle School during passing time and just see the crowded hallways. The other issue that we've identified is, the relationships between the teachers and the students. A couple things unfortunately happen. Del Rio Middle School has the highest turnover of any campus. Why? Because it's difficult. Teachers come into the teaching profession wanting to engage with students, wanting to be that teacher that you recall 30 years from now, but instead it's just a big game of managing behavior, a big game of hall duty, a terrible duty of lunch. The acoustics in that room are terrible. And just the large number, if you've ever wanted to be a teacher at the middle school, sit down and have lunch with a student just to get to know them better, it's impossible. It's way too loud. It drives people nuts. So we have a whole lot of turnover at Del Rio Middle School. So not only are we not able to develop teachers because of the turnover, teachers aren't able to form meaningful academic relationships with the students or even with each other to become better. And for all these reasons, unfortunately, Del Rio Middle School has been a D campus more often than not. And here's the part about it that it shouldn't be. If we look at our 5th grade students across the district, our 5th grade students, if we compare them to the state average, our kids are outscoring the state in terms of their academic achievement. I know a lot of people aren't for assessment, but as an educator, I have to have a measure of, how's our progress going? Are our kids growing every year? So I have to pay attention to accountability. I have to pay attention to if our kids are performing with the rest of the state. So at 5th grade, our kids outscore the state average. We have more kids scoring at bilingual, meets or masters when we compare to the state. That's huge. That means our 5th grade kids are getting this quality elementary education. But yet we go into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and it starts going down. And in 8th grade, kids pass, or they go to summer school. Largest summer school program will be at middle school. And they go to high school. And then kids start fending for themselves. But they should have been so much better prepared. But the geography of it doesn't allow it. And that's happened for 20 years. So for 20 years, we've turned over principals, we've turned over teachers, we've had social media chaos. And I like to say that a whole lot of it is exaggerated, and much of it is, but the reality is that it isn't, because kids are at that very complex age. Somewhere today you saw a picture of a kid vaping as they were walking home. Weren't vaping in the hallways, but they were vaping on the way home. Middle school is probably too much of an age for kids to be doing that. A month ago, there was an unfortunate incident on San Felipe Creek. It's that age, it's those students that are at Del Rio Middle School that we have to provide a better setting for, because we should be preparing our kids at all grade levels like we do at 5th grade. We should be able to say, look, you go to your freshman campus and you are prepared to do any of these programs that we have. But we lose so many kids at the middle school. So it is a difficult situation. And we're not doing this proposal for any other reason other than we should be able to do better by each one of our students. There's no financial gain. There's no any kind of gain. It's all about student achievement and student safety. So we have a difficult situation because it's urgent that we take action. Okay, so here is I talked about this already. Here is what we are recommending. We are recommending that we fall in line with the rest of the state, and that instead of having a 7th and 8th grade campus like we have right now in a 6th grade standalone campus, we are recommending that we have 3 separate middle schools, that we have one 6th through 8th grade campus at Del Rio Middle School with about 730 to 750 capacity. Doesn't mean that it's going to have that many kids, but at that capacity. We're recommending that San Felipe Memorial also be a 6th through 8th grade campus with the same capacity, and that Garfield, which is right behind us, also be a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade campus. We would have 3 middle schools that right now, given our enrollment, would have about maybe 680 students per campus. Every one of the middle schools that are being proposed here, everyone would have the same programs that Del Rio Middle School has right now. We'd have athletics, we would have band, we'd have choir, we'd have the CTE courses. We would have everything. The only thing that would be different is that 6th grade right now has the new tech middle school concept. We started that last year. Our goal that we envisioned about 3 years ago was that if we could do a full-fledged 6th through 8th grade new tech middle school, then we would at least alleviate, that much enrollment from the current middle school. And we'd have, 2 middle schools, although one would be just a new tech. But the feedback that we got from a lot of parents was that, well, if my kid goes to new tech, he's not gonna be able to do sports? Well, no, it's gonna be new tech. Okay, well then, after 6th grade, I don't want him in new tech anymore. I want him to go to middle school. And there were some that were willing to do it, but our goal was to recruit 250 students, so we'd have about 750. Well, that didn't materialize, and it didn't get much better this year. So that's not gonna work as the strategy to downsize Del Rio Middle School. That's why 6th grade, when it becomes a 6th through 8th grade campus, it would house new tech as a magnet program, as a school within a school, okay? Some questions are, okay, well, why Garfield? Why are you picking Garfield? Well, there's a couple reasons, okay? All 3 middle schools need to have a competition gym because we're gonna play volleyball and basketball, okay? All 3 middle schools need a big cafeteria. All 3 middle schools need somewhere for the band to practice. And Garfield's the only one that has it out of all the schools. That's why we picked Garfield, okay? People say, well, Garfield doesn't have a gym. Well, Cody Warlaw is gonna be getting renovated here, starting hopefully in a couple of months. We already got the bids out. The city partnered with us. They put in 1.2 million, we put in 1.2, so Cody Warlaw is gonna be very usable here shortly. We have this beautiful stage with risers for the band to practice in here, and it's almost attached to Garfield. So that's why we picked Garfield. Okay, so now the question is, before I go to that, the benefits to students, the question is, okay, well, what happens to Garfield? Because Garfield has about 600 students, maybe 640 students. Okay, so here's the reality of our size. Our district in enrollment has not grown. Has not grown, as a matter of fact, since COVID, it's probably reduced by 600 students. And we were always bigger than the students that we had. Okay? We built Ceniza Hills because that's the direction that the city is growing. That's where the houses are. Lonnie Green and Buena Vista, before we built Ceniza Hills, was pushing 820 kids. Probably too big for an elementary campus. So we built Ceniza Hills. The enrollment in most of our schools is below 600. Garfield's a little bigger, so it has a little bit over 600. Yeah. If we were to, right now, I guess I'll put it this way, right now we have 1,000, almost 1,100 more chairs than we have students at the elementary level. That's more than one school. we have 1,100 more desks than what we have students. That means that in reality, we would have an option to either A, close down one elementary school and have all the other schools at about 675 students, and not use Garfield as an elementary. Or another plan is, we could use Blended Academy, which is right next to Garfield, and have a small neighborhood school. Initially, that was the idea. We received some feedback that it's probably not cool to have Garfield students in such a small school without immediate access to a larger gym. And so I think that what needs to happen is, I think I'm going to ask the Board of Trustees to approve the middle school redesign concept, but leave the boundaries for a later date. I think I want to engage the families in this neighborhood that would end up going to Blended Academy and ask, do you want a small neighborhood school? It's not going to have a gym. It's not going to have access to a gym, but it's not going to have a gym. Or would you rather that we rezone Garfield because there's plenty of room in the rest of the district? It might take busing students from here to Calderon, which isn't as far as would otherwise. So we may have to distribute. But I really think that, to be fair to the community here in Chihuahua, is that we would engage them and have them decide. So my recommendation to the board tomorrow is going to be to move forward with the middle school concept, but wait on deciding where the kids are going to go until, for another month, until we have visited with the families here in the neighborhood and decide what they prefer. I think that's a better way of doing than just having me decide. Okay. If we do move to blended, then there's some construction that would have to happen after a bond election, which won't happen for another year and a half. Build maybe a more comfortable cafeteria and a gymnasium. Or again, we could rezone and not have to do any of that. But I think that conversation should be strictly held with the families in the neighborhood that would be affected by it. So tomorrow, that's what we would ask. Okay. Otherwise, we would rezone the students mainly to these three campuses here: Dr. Lonnie Green, Buena Vista, and Fermin Calderon. Okay. But again, I'm asking the board to approve the three middle school concept and decide whether we're going to go with a blended academy or rezone to all three schools once we engage the community that would be affected by not having a smaller neighborhood school. Okay. That was, okay, so let me now go back to this slide here. We know that just by rezoning and just by creating three middle schools, we know that in and of itself is not going to all of a sudden fix the students' outcomes. We know that we have to couple that with ensuring that we have smaller class sizes. That doesn't automatically happen because you have a smaller campus. But I think that we have to continue to study that, okay? We'll definitely have more opportunities to engage students because, again, the teacher's energy is not going to be focused on kids in the hallway being drained by just the mere size of it. That's going to happen. It's just going to be easier to maintain a safe environment, better ability to adapt teaching. It's just going to be way more academically engaging. It's just going to be more time with students on academics. That is a huge issue, and I wish I could spend more time just talking about all the benefits. But when I think about it, when we've thought about it over the last couple of years, what's moved us to try to downsize the middle school is just the worry about student safety. Huge worry. But I tell you, when we downsize, safety is going to be almost immediate. Still have to do a lot of things that the state requires us to do. But the academic engagement and the preparation for more rigorous programs at the high school for everybody is going to be tremendous. The more opportunities for students to participate, because now you're going to have 3 National Honor Societies, 3 bands, 3 volleyball teams, 3 basketball teams. You know, kids are going to get to develop at all levels for whatever it is that they want to develop in. You take a middle school kid that gets benched and doesn't play too much volleyball or too much basketball. The truth is that they're still developing. If they have the right resources at home, you know, you're going to find a way to keep your kids involved, so that when they finally develop, you know, they're going to be able to compete, whether it be a band or whatever they choose to. But if they don't have the right resources at home that have time to take them to and from, you know, club ball or that sort of stuff, just not going to happen. And we could do so much better with the smaller campuses. So that's where we're at, folks. We're recommending to the board that we have 3 middle schools with much lower enrollment. We can look at Del Rio Middle School and say, wow, we're going to have half the traffic there. Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's not exactly why we're doing it, but that is going to be a benefit. I'll give you all, you know, some people say, well, aren't you going to spend more money? Absolutely, initially. But as we get better, I'll give you an example. The state provides school districts what they call outcome bonuses. If we have more students that graduate with an associate's degree or that graduate, you know, college and career ready, above and beyond what they say we should have, you know, they incentivize that for us. They give us money. Now, we're not doing it for money, but obviously, you know, the more money we get, the more we can invest. This year, you know, we're going to increase our outcome bonuses by $70,000. Amy, what was the projected number, the total projected number for the outcome bonuses? It's about $225,000. So just for having these incredible programs that we do at the high school, you know, the state giving us $225,000. That's about 4 extra teachers that we can hire. Just on that alone, for smaller class size. That's huge. Having less kids absent because it's in a smaller, more engaging setting, that's more money for the schools. Again, that we get to reinvest in what we're doing. Teachers, having teachers less stressed out about the day and not taking less days off on Fridays and Mondays. Just the money that we would save on substitutes alone, that's money we reinvest. So yes, we are going to pay more money because you're going to have more participation from the students. But it balances out with the return that we get on our investment for students. So at the end of the day, when all the pluses and minuses are taken into account, we'll be just fine. And students will have a safer, much more engaging environment. So we presented this to the board. They asked us to make sure that we go back and have more discussions. So we visited with all 3 teaching units that are going to get affected, Garfield 6th Grade Center and Del Rio Middle School. And then they wanted one more community forum, so that's why we're here today. I can tell you that it's difficult if you're a teacher at Garfield because 100% of the teachers are going to move. It's somewhat difficult if you are a teacher at 6th grade because you're going to have to move also. 1 and 3 are going to have to move. But I can tell you that teachers at Del Rio Middle School that go through this day in, day out, when we had the meeting with them, it was probably the longest meeting. And it was definitely the most well-received because they know what kids go through. They know what they go through on a daily basis. That campus just can't continue. So now tomorrow we'll have a meeting. We'll make the recommendation to the board along with some other agenda items. So now I want to recognize Ms. Becky Chavez, Mr. Mesa. I don't know if I didn't see him earlier. I apologize. So now we have like 5 board members here, 4 board members. So here's a part where you ask questions or make suggestions, and we take notes, and if we're able to answer, we'll answer. If not, then we'll get back to you. Yes, sir.
So is it definite, those three locations going up?
Well, it's up to this point, the recommendation is definite. The board still has to take action. So it's pending tomorrow's vote by the board.
So it's pretty much done.
Well, you know, I've made recommendations that haven't been approved, sir. If you remember a few years ago, I got beaten up about moving Cardwell. So, I mean, I would hope it would, but I don't know until the board votes. Yes, sir.
So, obviously there's a problem with middle school. Yes, we need to bring it down. Now, breaking into three different schools, I think it's kind of going overboard on that. Maybe two schools, I mean, now if we're gonna have all these kids go back at freshman, well, I get you from that school, I mean, you know what I mean, this could be that confrontations from those rivalries. If you split it up too much. Number two, geographically, Del Rio, if you, instead of putting a guard, because I mean, we're about 7 minutes away from the other 6, 7, 8 campus, and we're closer, which is the 7th campus. We don't have anything on the other side of the tracks. There's nothing up north. You used to have a middle school out there. You guys turned into Carville. You got plenty of space out there for a football field. Bagmouth, I don't remember this little Bagmouth. I don't remember participating in anything like that back in those days. It used to be a 6th grade. But potentially you got the space to develop a Bagmouth. And turn Carville, act the kids to the rest of the schools. I mean, because Carville is all it is, it's a pre-K. Why don't you just add that to the schools and move up something up north? Because you're pepping up everything, all the middle schools down here.
Those are,
For the people that live in Lake Ridge area, the north of town, like you said, we're growing to the north of town, but then again, you're putting all the middle schools in the south. So where's the growth for the north? I live in the south, but I mean, geographically, that would be a good spot, like I said. It used to be a middle school, in a way, it's designed to be a middle school, and you got plenty of space for it to add on all the amenities that you would need to add on for a middle school, rather than Garfield, which was built to be an elementary school. I think you probably have to do more adjustments, more modifications to an elementary school that was built to be an elementary school, rather than an old middle school that was transformed and transitioned to an elementary school and transitioning it back. That's my personal opinion, but.
so they're all valid points, except that I think for certain reasons, the board and the community in the past has tried to stay away from some of that. For example, time out. We gotta take turns. So, for example, one of the things that this community probably doesn't want to go back to is having that division that we had before consolidation. That's why it's important that we build smaller high schools like we have with blended or early college high school, so that at the end of the day, we're still one big organization, and the kids still come together, whether they go to blended or they go to early college high school, they still come together to participate in a huge band, a huge athletic program. Building a school to the north, a middle school to the north, and saying, okay, Ceniza Hills, Buena Vista, and Parlani Green are going to go here. That would certainly divide the community along economic lines, and that would be very divisive. And I think that's why the board and the community has stayed away from that. In terms of having 3 middle schools instead of 2, it is way more aggressive to have 3 middle schools. It is. Definitely takes a lot more for everybody that's going to make that happen. Except that, the more aggressive that we are, the more engagement that we're going to have for the students, because the more opportunities we're going to have, and the smaller the campuses are going to be, and that's important. But there's definitely more than one way to look at it. I just think that for those reasons, we don't want to sectionalize a school to the north and school to the south, and really break it down to have Instead of having two 1,200 student schools, have 3 schools, about 700. That's because that's a purpose, to be more engaging. Yes, ma'am.
You said that 5th grade scores are high in the state. You have 1,500 chairs still to fill in our elementary schools. So we're pushing all these students out of Garfield. Those classrooms are going to fill up. I do see like a compacted problem. Our scores going down for students in elementary being big classrooms. If our classrooms are small right now, we're seeing success in that. Is there going to be a future plan to somehow keep those classrooms small so we're not just adding more bodies? Because no matter what, we're not creating more space unless we do have the strongest
Sure.
player.
So there's a couple things. So first, the state requires us to be at 22 to 1. We can't go beyond that number. If we do, we have to figure out how we move students around or how we hire more teachers. So at least the classrooms won't, at the elementary school, regardless of where we put them, they won't be at higher than 22 to 1. What we really want to avoid is creating another Lonnie Green or Buena Vista with 800 students. So how do we distribute, if that's the decision, and I'm not saying it's going to be, how do we distribute 600 students from Garfield, and how do we redraw the boundaries to where everybody stays at about 620, 625 students? Because that's about the average of kids that we would have per campus. So that rezoning that we started to work on so that we can present to a committee that the board's going to appoint tomorrow would be huge. So we don't have to worry about class sizes growing. We really don't want the campuses, to grow to where Buena Vista and Lonnie Green were. And that's going to be not the challenge because we have enough room, but that's going to be the piece where we all would have to say, okay, that's the best we can do and go with it. But again, I think it's important that we engage the Chihuahua neighborhood because they would be the ones that would be rezoned. Yes, sir.
If this goes through, what are you projecting for an average class size? And what are you also projecting, how many more teachers and support staff is this going to be?
Support staff, not much more, okay? In terms of teachers, the reality is that we wouldn't have to add any more teachers, but because we have the same number of students. But, well, if all we do is rezone them, it wouldn't. That's why I'm saying that at the same time we're doing that, we have to make the investment in smaller class sizes. There's a couple areas that are huge needs. For example, we have a lot of students that are serviced by our special education department because they need more engaging presentations of the material. Okay? You can't have students that have this type of need and put them in a classroom that has 28 students and 14 of them are going to require special needs. So we have to be able to invest more in that type of downsizing, as well as downsizing classes that are maybe 32 down to somewhere about 26. So this whole project to engage more students, because at the end of the day, besides the safety, we want to engage more kids. We want to engage them at higher academic levels. It would take an investment in more personnel. And I think that by having more campuses, we would be able to recruit more teachers to Del Rio Middle School than we're able to recruit right now. Because right now, we can hardly get subs there because it's such a big campus. So we'd have to do both, is my point. Downsize it, as well as add more teachers. Now, how many teachers do I expect that we would add altogether? I couldn't give you that. I couldn't give you that number, but I would say it would be about, depending on what area we chose to invest in, I would say minimum 2 co-teachers per campus. So immediately there's 6, and then depending on the the larger the class sizes based on the demographics at the time, it could be up to another 2 or 3 per campus. So it could be as many as 15 teachers. Again, we don't have to do that, but downsizing alone is going to give you the safety, but it's not going to give you that higher engagement. The problem is that right now we can't recruit teachers to Del Rio Middle School. That has a high turnover rate. Why does it have a high turnover rate? Because of the difficulty. Yes, ma'am. What we do want to produce is more kids taking algebra and English 1 at the 8th grade, because that's kind of like the gatekeeper to all these other programs that you participate in. But again, we have to do a better development at the 6th and 7th grade. So students that perform at higher levels, they have that option already to be in advanced classes, and that's how we provide that acceleration for them. But we want more of that. As far as creating A, B, C campus, no, ma'am. We haven't, and I don't know that there is. I don't think we would do that. But definitely getting kids involved in more rigorous classes is a big part of this. I'm sorry, right here and then right here, okay? We've started a type of magnet at the middle school. It just hasn't taken off, and that's the New Tech Middle School. It hasn't taken off because a lot of students after the 6th grade year, they wanted the more comprehensive experiences. So that magnet program would exist at San Felipe Memorial. The way the students would be divided, the demographer needs to take into account primarily trying to divide the campuses as best as possible according to socioeconomic level, so that no one school has all of one group. Okay, but the San Felipe Memorial Middle School would be the magnet program for students that chose to go there, and then based on the number of kids that chose there and the number of room left is how many more students we would add to San Felipe Memorial. Yes, sir.
Let's say if everything goes on as planned, the way you're saying it's going to happen. Do you already have the staff available? I mean, what's going to happen to the teachers from Garfield, first of all? Where are they going to go? And second, do you have the middle school teachers that are going to be teaching in those schools, this campus? Because you're adding about, I don't know, let's say there's about 25 classrooms in there, more or less. Let's say about 5 per grade here at the Garfield level. So that's 25 more teachers, middle school. hey, you know what, man, as soon as you move up with the program skills, we're there for you, we can start teaching there, and do you really have all that set up? Because, I mean, we're gonna be changing all this, we're gonna be spending all this taxpayer dollars. And, I mean, we're not gonna spend all this money for, just to see, let's see how it works. Let's give it a try to see if it works. I mean, we're gonna move forward with it, but you have to staff it.
Yes. The first part we have to remember is we're not immediately adding more students. The enrollment that we have is the enrollment that we have right now. So right now, based on the enrollment that we have, we would divide up the teachers, or the principals would divide up the teachers so that every campus would have the necessary amount of teachers. Now, our hope, our goal is because we don't have that big school, that we're able to recruit additional teachers above and beyond what we already have. So we already have enough teachers to make it work. So immediately we're going to see a better environment because it's going to be a safer, smaller environment. What we want to add to that, besides adding a whole lot of opportunities for teachers to collaborate with each other, not have that turnover, is to be able to recruit additional teachers to the middle school age group. But we already have the teachers employed by the district that would transition. 2/3 of the teachers at 6th grade would transition out, go either blended over here, and 2/3 of the teachers at Del Rio Middle School would go to either 6th grade or Garfield. So we already have enough teachers. Okay, so the teachers from Garfield follow the students. If we take half of the students on one plan and put them at blended, okay, well, half of the teachers go to blended, and then the other half follow the students wherever the students are rezoned to. If we go with Plan B, and all the kids are rezoned, then they follow the students to the campus that they're rezoned in, because we still need that amount of teachers.
And in order for that to happen, I'm a numbers man. In order for that to happen, you're getting all these teachers, there's 25 teachers, for example, from Garfield. So there's 25 classrooms available within the district among the elementary schools that are going to be left over.
There's twice as much as that, sir.
There's twice as much as that. See, that's what I
Yeah.
I have a son at Garfield,
Yeah.
and like I said, I have another child at the middle school. So I'm trying to see how this is going to benefit us, and how it's going to benefit future generations to come. This is going to be a problem that you're going to fix temporarily for the next 5 years. I mean, is this a long-term plan that's going to work in effect and give us good results for a long period of time, or is this just for the next 5 years while we patch it?
Sure. Nobody has a crystal ball, but I would guarantee you that in all of the campuses that we've observed, across the state and campuses that we've studied, I am yet to see a downsized campus not be successful. The more successful campuses anywhere in the state, anywhere in the United States, are smaller campuses. You're not going to find a large campus that is just successful year in and year out. There's too many challenges for it. But smaller campuses, that's always going to be the preferred setting. I don't have a crystal ball, but if I had to bet my career on it, I'd say absolutely. I've never seen a small campus fail. It doesn't. It's just more interaction with teachers, safer environment for students, more interaction with parents, and that triangle between the parent, the student, and the teacher just flourishes. It's going to be abundantly more successful than what we have right now at Del Rio Middle School, and that's not even an exaggeration. It's going to be abundantly more successful, guaranteed, just by the mere size of it. And it's something that I know that the change is difficult right now primarily because there's a lot of teachers affected. But I guarantee you that when the parents have their students at a campus of 750 students versus at a campus of 1,500 students, or depending on the year, as many as 1,600, it's a huge difference. It's just safer, more engaging. The setting for academics is better. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking that because I do have to make a clarification, okay? The answer is yes. They would have everything. There'd be 3 student councils, 3 National Honor Societies, 3 UIL academic teams, 3 football teams, three of everything, okay? However, the only 2 things that Garfield and San Felipe do not have, and I'm not saying that they won't have it in the future, is they don't have tennis courts. Okay? The complex is at either Del Rio High School or at Del Rio Middle School. So if you wanted to do tennis at either one of those schools, for that we would, they're after school activities anyhow, they're after school activities now, we would have to bus students who wanted to do tennis, and same with track. Okay, they would either have to go practice at the high school or go practice at the middle school, but we would provide for all that. Okay, but aside from that, everything would be 100% identical. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So right now, the tennis team practices at 5:30 in the morning to 7:15 in the morning, Tuesdays and Thursdays. How would that be accommodated? That's not much time for kids to get dressed and get ready and eat breakfast before they start class. Would there potentially be maybe where the tennis team is just focused at Del Rio Middle School, and if you have a athlete that qualifies for summer tryouts, can attend that campus?
That's always a possibility, but I think that, well, it's not that I think, I'm pretty certain that one of the reasons that they're practicing at those hours, especially right now that the weather's no longer an issue, is because of coaches and their availability. And that's what I was sharing with the teachers at the middle schools. I would hope that you have more energy and more wherewithal to volunteer to do some of these other coaching opportunities so that kids can be more involved. So it's not space because they have a huge tennis complex there, but it's more a factor of adults able to coach them.
On the note of extracurricular activities, please forgive me if anyone's teacher here at the 7th and 8th grade campus, but it sounds like those teachers are pretty burnt out. How are you going to incentivize them to volunteer for these extra curricular activities for all the campuses? Because it sounds like you probably have 1 teacher or 2 coaches that do tennis here. You'll have to find 4 more for the other 2, or how would that work?
Couple more, 2 more. I think that the first thing that's going to happen is that teachers won't be as tired and drained. I mean, right now it's all about safety, and at the end of the day, you want to be gone. So that engagement thing works both ways. The students have more opportunity to engage, but so do the teachers, because at the end of the day, everybody's human, right? So I think that's going to take care of some of the problem. The other part is with less of the discipline issues and learning issues, we will be able to actively recruit other people who maybe hadn't thought about doing it. Yeah. I know when I started teaching, I wasn't an athlete. I had not been an athlete in high school. I was in a real nice setting, and somebody said, "Hey, how would you like to coach?" And I said, "Well, sure, I'm a real good runner, and I'm a real good swimmer. What do you want me to coach?" "Why don't you coach basketball?" But it happens when you're in those settings that you just want to be part of. And I think that we'll have to recruit some, but I think it'll be easier to recruit. Yeah.
Now that we're going to be adding about 100 students to each elementary school, are they going to be added security measures to the schools now that are going to be more populated and traffic in those schools? Some of those schools are pretty bad. Lonnie Green, it's one of the major ones that has a pretty bad traffic. But you add another 100 cars to that.
Well, I'll give you an example. Garfield has 630 kids, okay? They have one police officer because the state says you should have one armed officer at every campus. Okay. Lamar has maybe 530 kids, 540 kids. They have one police officer. So at the end of the day, every campus is going to be max how Garfield is right now. So we'd have, still one police officer. I don't want to pretend that we're going to double the police force at the elementary. In terms of the traffic patterns, there's going to be, whether it be 100 more cars or a few more kids being dropped off by mom and dad or taking the bus, it is going to be extra students at the campuses, but it's not going to be any more students that they've had in the past. So Lonnie Green, for example, used to have, what was the number, Ms. Pond? About 800 students. Okay, well, it's not going to be nowhere near that. The max that they're going to get to is about 620, 630. I have to work with a demographer, but it's still going to be much better than it has been in the past. But it is going to be an additional set of families attending that school. Whether we rezone 300 or we rezone 600, it is going to be more cars, but not as many as there were before. Yes, ma'am.
Is there maybe a graphic that shows, and I know we don't have a tomographer study done, but a graphic that has some estimated boundaries where it would show where these schools would, like the neighborhoods these schools would get?
The middle schools?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
that's something that hasn't been brought up, and I think that's a big, probably nice factor.
Well, the one piece that is missing is knowing how many students are going to go to San Felipe under the magnet program. Okay, and I don't have the numbers yet to determine where all the economic differences are with students. But the scenario I put forward, thinking if it balances out, it would be Garfield would take Buena Vista and Lonnie Green, or part of Lonnie Green. And Delaware Middle School would take Ceniza Hills and Calderon, and then possibly San Felipe Memorial would take some of Lamar and Chavira, depending on how many students from the north side of town enter the magnet program, and then the others will be divided both ways. So we would try to get as close to the house as possible, the student's house, keeping in mind the eco-dis balance between one campus and the other. But my plan, again, I'm just envisioning it. I really need the demographer who has all the data now, and they're working on it, to draw out different scenarios, and then that would be presented. The board's going to approve a citizens committee tomorrow. It's going to be 14 parents and 7 teachers and 3 administrators that would be the principals at that campus, that they're going to study that to make sure that they're as balanced as possible while being as close to their home as possible. Mr. Mesa, our board president, I know that y'all talked at the last time. Is there anything that I missed or anything that you want to add?
First of all, thank you for being here at the town hall meeting. Back then, when the school was, and I'm talking about Del Rio Middle School, was in the planning stages, I went before the school board. I had been named the principal of that school. At that time, I had 2 campuses. What is now 6th grade was 7th grade, and this was 8th grade. In the morning, I went to 7th grade. In the afternoon, I came to 8th grade.
It was kind of crazy. And then they built that giant school. At that time, I did the research, and there were only 2 or 3 in the whole state that surpassed 1,200 enrollment. So I went before the board and I recommended that it be not more than 1,200 students. And of course, they didn't listen and they built that giant school. It's very difficult to manage. I was the principal there, Dr. Rios was the principal there. It's very difficult to manage. Nowadays, students and social media, there's a lot of things that are happening that are different from, some 10, 12 years ago. And so it's getting more difficult. Now, when we passed the bond, I was hoping that we would pass a bond for 2 schools. Well, the board voted to pass a bond for 1 school. We knew that the students at Cardwell, they walk, they were outside, they were visible from the streets, the hallways. Even if they go to the cafeteria, you can see them. It was not an enclosed campus. So that was a priority, safety, to get these students in a building that you can't see from the outside, they're inside, and they're protected. Safety was a major factor there. But in reality, we needed 2 schools. And so that's the reason that I know you brought that up about the gymnasium. It was Memorial Middle School, 6th grade campus. I was the principal there too when it was a 6th grade campus. But anyway, that was priority, was to get these students in the campus where they won't be visible from the outside. Safety was a big factor, is a big factor for everything. But honestly, research shows that once a school goes over 1,200, it's very difficult to manage. And again, academically and, as far as discipline, everything becomes difficult, the traffic and so forth. So the other thing that I proposed to the board at that time was, we don't have but only 1 road going in, 1 road going out. And I always brought up, again, safety. There's a railroad track, if there's a hazardous material spill, I don't know how we're going to evacuate that campus, Now I think there's an access road in the back, but it's not in good shape. I've gone over that road, but safety is always the number 1 factor. And this plan sounds great because, again, as board members, we look at all that. We look at the teacher turnover, and yet every campus that is successful is because you have tenure with the teachers. They've been there. They know the families. They know the students. They know the brother that has gone through that campus, sister, and so forth. The parents, the communication is there, and the engagement is there. And they come to the PTO meetings and, get to know the other families. So the smaller the campus, the more progress and success is going to be because, again, parents will know the parents of the other children. It makes it a lot easier even for transportation and just overall much better. So thank you, Dr. Rios. If there are any questions, I know that we're going to be asking for 2. I've already got the 2 parents and 1 teacher to be in the committee. So again, there will be more discussion and again, more involvement and questions answered. But thank you for being here tonight.
Any other board member? All right. I know that it's a difficult proposal. It is an aggressive proposal like the gentleman mentioned. But I guarantee you that there's no way that we would be taking on this massive amount of work if it wasn't the right thing to do for our students and our community. Change is difficult, but if this change happens within a year or 2, kids are still gonna be kids, right? but it's just going to be so much more successful. Their academic preparation is going to be way better. Their ability to participate in school activities is going to be tremendously better. And whatever amount of 60-hour work week that we do between now and then to get it ready, it's going to be one of the better investments that we did in our community. If you, where's Jane in the back? If you would like to be on any one of the committees, if you provided your name the last meeting, it's already on there. But if you haven't and you say, hey, I want to be part of, I want to see the demographer, I want to know where the lines are going to be drawn and who's going to go where. If you want to be part of that, and you don't have to be part of the bigger committee, then we would definitely at least invite you to come to that. But we want to be as transparent as possible. And as engaging as we can with the families. So by all means, give your name to Jane. She's going to stick around for a little bit, and let her know. I just want to know where the lines are going to be drawn, or I want to be part of the bigger process. By all means, but I guarantee you, folks, we would not be taking on this massive amount of work if it wasn't the right thing for all the students in the community. Apologize to the teachers that are going to have to move if this goes through, but it's about being more successful with the students. All right, thank you so much. Sign up with Jane if you'd like to participate, okay? Thank y'all.